There is a root you can pull out of your own garden in October, eat it raw right there in the dirt, and it will taste like an apple and a spoonful of honey mixed together. No sugar added. No cooking, no sales pitch, just a sweet white root pulled from the ground that a Roman emperor once demanded be shipped to him every single year. And here is the part that should stop you. You plant it exactly one time. That's it. After that, it comes back on its own, every year, forever, off the same roots you leave in the ground. You never buy the seed again. You never replant. It just feeds you and your children and your grandchildren decade after decade for the price of a single packet, one time. Walk into any garden center in this country tomorrow and ask for it by name, and you will get a blank stare. The seed racks do not carry it. Most Americans have never heard of it, and in the next few minutes you will understand exactly why a sweet, ancient, self-renewing vegetable quietly vanished from American life, while you pay for a bag of sugar every single week. Because this is not a story about a root, it is a story about a plant that was too generous to sell, and a business that had no use for anything you only had to buy once. Stay with me, because you can grow this exact root yourself, and I will show you how at the end. The plant is called skirret, and you have almost certainly never heard the name, which is remarkable because for most of recorded history this was one of the most beloved root vegetables in the entire Western world. Let's go all the way back. The Romans knew this plant and prized it. The great Roman writer Pliny the Elder wrote about its sweet roots almost 2,000 years ago. And according to the old accounts, the Emperor Tiberius himself thought so highly of it that he demanded a yearly supply be brought to him from across the empire. This was not peasant food. This was a delicacy fit for the table of a Caesar, and it did not stop there. All through the Middle Ages and into the time of kings and queens whose names you know, skirret was a staple. It grew in monastery gardens and in the kitchen plots of manor houses. It was, quite simply, one of the main root crops that fed Europe. For century after century, if you dug in a European garden, you would very likely find this sweet white root growing there. So picture what these people actually had. A root that tasted sweet enough to please an emperor, that grew in ordinary soil without fuss, and that came back year after year on its own. In a hard world with long winters, that was a genuine treasure, sitting quietly in the dirt. So here is the first question that should stop you cold. If this plant fed emperors and kings and common families alike for nearly 2,000 years, why has almost nobody alive today ever even heard its name? To answer that, you have to understand the single most important thing about this plant, the thing that made it beloved for 2,000 years, and the very same thing that would eventually get it erased. It is a perennial. Now let me explain exactly what that means, because it is the whole heart of this story. Almost every vegetable in your garden today is an annual. A tomato, a carrot, a head of lettuce. You plant the seed, it grows. You harvest it, and it dies. And next spring you have to go buy the seed and plant it all over again. Every year, forever. Skirret does not work that way. Skirret is a perennial, which means it lives on. You plant it once. In the fall, you dig up the cluster of sweet roots it has made, you take what you want for the kitchen, and you simply push a few of the little root divisions back into the soil, and that is all. Those divisions grow into next year's plant, entirely on their own. No new seed, no replanting. The same crown feeding you again and again for as long as you tend it. One planting, and you could eat from it for the rest of your life. Think about how powerful that is for a family trying to feed itself. A carrot patch has to be bought and started fresh every single spring. A skirret bed, once it is in the ground, is done. It just produces and divides and produces again, asking nothing of you but a little patience and the good sense to leave a few roots behind. So we come back to the question, if it is sweet and ancient and hardy and it renews itself for free forever, then where on earth did it go? And here the answer comes in two parts, and I want to give you both honestly, because that is what we do here.
The first part is simple, and it is true. When the potato arrived and swept across Europe, it was easier. The potato was big and filling and dead simple to prepare. Boil it and you are done. Skirret roots are more slender and cleaning a cluster of them takes more work than scrubbing a potato. So over time, in a busy world, the potato won on pure convenience, and skirret slowly fell out of fashion. That much is honest history. By the 1800s, it had mostly disappeared from the cookbooks. But convenience only explains why it faded. It does not explain why it vanished so completely, why it was scrubbed out so thoroughly that today you cannot even find the seed on a rack. And that is the second part. Because here is what happened to this plant right at the dawn of the modern seed business. Skirret was still being sold. It appeared in the seed catalogs of the old seedsmen right up until around the turn of the 20th century. And then, quietly, it was dropped. Pulled from the catalogs, left off the racks, and it never came back. Now ask yourself, from the point of view of a company whose entire livelihood is selling seeds, what is the worst possible product you could ever offer? It is a plant that a customer only has to buy one single time. A perennial that renews itself for free is a business's nightmare. You sell it once, and then that customer is fed for life and never comes back to you again. Compare that to an annual. An annual is the perfect product. The customer must return to you every single spring, year after year, and buy the seed all over again, because their plants died in the fall by design. That is a bill that never stops.
So as the seed business grew and modernized, the catalogs quietly filled up with annuals, the vegetables you have to rebuy forever, and the old perennials like skirret were pruned away. Not with a ban, not with a law, just with a slow, quiet business decision repeated across the industry that there was simply no profit in a plant you only ever sold once. The convenience of the potato pushed skirret to the edge, and the logic of the seed business finished the job by leaving it off the shelf entirely. And so a vegetable that fed the Western world for 2,000 years, a root sweet enough for a Caesar, simply disappeared from living memory in the span of a few generations. Not because it stopped working, not because it stopped being sweet, but because a plant that keeps giving for free has no place in a business built on making you pay again and again. And that, when you strip away the centuries, is a pattern you know well by now. The things that could make you independent, the plant that renews itself, the root that feeds you for free, get quietly set aside in favor of the things you have to keep buying. Not because they failed you, because your independence was never what was being sold. That is exactly the freedom this channel is about. And it is exactly what the self-sufficient backyard blueprint was built to give back to you. It is a complete, practical guide to filling your own ground with the plants, the perennials, and the forgotten crops that feed a family for a lifetime instead of a season. Even if you are starting from nothing and have never grown a thing, the link is waiting at the top of the description. If this is opening your eyes, that is where to begin.
Because here's the best part. This plant never actually went extinct. The wall around it was only ever forgetfulness. The seed survived, tucked away in government seed vaults and kept alive by a handful of dedicated gardeners. And in recent years, it has begun to come back. A few heritage seed companies are selling skirret once again, which means the 2,000-year-old sweet root that fed emperors is right now within your reach. So here's how you actually grow it, and it is genuinely simple.
Skirret grows from seed, or even better, from a root division or a crown if you can get one, which gives you a head start. Plant it in moist, decent garden soil, in full sun or even a bit of shade, and keep it watered, because this plant likes to stay moist. It does not want to dry out. Here is the one bit of patience it asks. In the very first year, the roots can be a little thin and woody, so the old-timers knew to wait. Let the plant settle in and harvest properly from the second year on, when the sweet roots have really come into their own. And when fall comes, this is the whole magic of it. Dig up the cluster of roots. Take the good sweet ones for your kitchen. Boil them, roast them, or eat them raw like the emperors did. And then simply divide off a few of the small crowns and push them right back into the ground. That is it. You have just planted next year's harvest for free from this year's plant. Do that each fall, and you may never buy the seed again for the rest of your life. One honest note, as always, because it matters. This plant is in the same family as the carrot and the parsnip, a family that also contains some dangerous wild lookalikes out in the ditches and wetlands. so do not go foraging for this in the wild unless you are a true expert. Grow it in your own garden bed from seed or crowns you bought from a trusted source, so you know with total certainty exactly what you have. Grown that way, in your own soil, it is a safe, sweet, generous vegetable.
So let's recap what we just dug up. A sweet white root that a Roman emperor demanded every year, and that fed Europe for nearly 2,000 years. A perennial you plant one single time and harvest for the rest of your life, dividing it for free every fall. And a plant that vanished from American life, not because it failed, but because the potato was easier. And above all, because a vegetable you only buy once has no home in a business that lives on selling you seed every spring. They told you sweetness comes in a bag from a store. They never told you a root that tastes like apple and honey once grew in every garden and could grow again in yours, forever, off a single planting.
If this opened your eyes, do two things before you go. Subscribe, because every single week we dig up another piece of the free abundance they hoped you would overlook, and grab the self-sufficient backyard blueprint down in the description. It's the practical, step-by-step version of everything this channel stands for. The root that fed emperors is waiting to feed you. Go and plant it once and eat from it for life.